Well, I just want to welcome you guys all tonight to our bi-weekly town hall meeting, and we do on Zoom. We had a great meeting in Brandon here, the Westman area on Saturday, and it was just well-attended meeting and lots of time Q&A with some of the people from the Westman area, and we were really excited to meet some new people and be able to introduce the Keystone Party to the Westman area. And so tonight we're continuing on with our online meetings. And yeah, so thanks for joining with us tonight. The topic of tonight's meeting is we're going to be working our way through the 10 guiding principles as we're going through these online town halls. Tonight, last week, we had covered the principle of fundamental rights, and we discussed and dialogued on that topic and how that guiding principle serves the principles and the underlying foundation of the Keystone Party and all of our policy decisions, as well as how it affects the Constitution and that kind of stuff. And so tonight, we're going to be continuing on that theme and moving on to principle number 2, which is the principle of the freedom of the person. And so tonight we have with us Adam McAllister, one of our steering committee members. And Adam, you'll see right there is Adam. And so Adam has been a long-standing member serving with the Keystone Party. I believe you were one of the founding members, correct, Adam? Yeah.
So
you go back a ways, so that's awesome. Well, we're going to hear from Adam tonight a little bit. He's going to share a little bit with us, and then he's going to discuss and just go over the principle of the freedom of the person. So if you'd like to follow along, you can jump onto the Keystone Party Manitoba website, and you'll see under scroll down the page a little ways, and you'll see our guiding principles towards the bottom of the page, and you can follow along there. And Adam's going to introduce some of that stuff tonight. And then we have with us again our party leader Kevin Friesen, as well as Charlene Hancock Snow. So we will be doing a bit of a Q&A on this topic after Adam's presentation, and also be taking any questions you guys may have as well. So feel free to fire questions down in the chat that you may have, yeah, we'll do our best to get to them. And we have a few questions as well that have been submitted previously online. You can submit questions at any time to us at info@keystonepartymb.ca, and we get those questions come in through email, and then we do our best to answer them one-on-one, but we also do them in town hall format as well. Charlene will be sharing a little bit here with us in a little bit on the next physical town hall that we're going to be hosting. And so I won't steal any of her thunder there. I'll let her share that exciting news with you guys. But anyway, without any further ado here, let's just jump into this. And yeah, we'll hear from Adam. So Adam, why don't you share a little bit about yourself, history with the party, how you got involved with the Keystone Party and came to be part of the party and helped to found the party, and any previous experience you had prior to that, and then open us up on this this topic of our principle number 2 tonight, on the principle of the freedom of the person. So go ahead, Adam.
awesome. Thank you, Mike. Well, I'm not going to tell my whole life story, but I'll definitely talk about that principle and kind of weave it into how I got involved with the Keystone Party and why that's actually a huge passion of mine. And I think it's really lacking and really important to have as a foundational principle for the party. Yeah, so basically I'm personally passionate about being part of a community where people can thrive and have the opportunities to work hard and improve their own lives and the lives of others, and essentially be free to work, play, speak, think, worship, and the list goes on. And so that kind of essentially, is what our principle of freedom of the person is all about. It says that we believe that the freedoms and rights of individuals to chart the course of their lives is the keystone of a democratic society, and that should be celebrated and protected. We believe that every person is entitled to an equal opportunity to grow and thrive, limited only by their abilities and efforts. We believe in the freedom and rights of each person, while recognizing that we must ensure that public policies and legislation maintain the delicate balance between the freedoms and rights of the person and the freedoms and rights of the community and society. So these are things that are hugely like important to a functioning society, a well-functioning society where people can thrive. And that's something that we're missing, I feel, in Manitoba and, in Canada as a whole. So, especially over the last several years, I've become very concerned with the erosion of freedoms in Manitoba and Canada. And along with this, more and more control being concentrated by a small number of people in positions of government and their friends. At both the federal and provincial level, I've noticed a trend where even the so-called conservative parties were bowing to the culture of excessive spending and restricting freedoms. And even after we had record deficits from the Liberal government, back in 2019, 2018, the Conservatives weren't planning to balance the budget. So there was an election that year, and it was difficult to see at the time. But Canada was becoming extremely economically unstable, and that would also limit the freedoms that we had and were able to enjoy. So I decided in the 2019 election to run for the PPC. And since while they weren't exactly a grassroots party, and I wouldn't characterize them that way, they were the only party at the time committed to balancing the budget, as well as scaling back overseas spending, particularly on overseas abortion, which was a troubling for me personally. So when COVID came around in 2020, and the provincial government started to really restrict certain things such as public gatherings and religious services, I understood to some extent because there were many unknowns, but I felt there was a severe lack of transparency. So if they're citing, the science, I felt that, they should at least tell us what that science is and publish the data that they're relying on, rather than just falling back on the excuse of following public health officials. So by the fall of 2020, I really began to feel that there was no party in Manitoba that was acting in the best interest of Manitobans and that was protecting that freedom that I cherish and that I think you guys cherish as well, and giving us a voice. And essentially, there was no true grassroots party. So I started to kind of look around and see if anything was happening, if there was any new parties starting up, and I learned about one party that was getting started, and so I talked to the leader, and he was happy to kind of bring me on the team. And it was actually going pretty well for a while. And I agree with the principles and there was that principle of freedom there. But it was clear to me that this was more of a passion project for the person in charge and an opportunity for him to have his shot at politics than it was a true grassroots party. So for a little while, myself and the others on the team, we tried to build a grassroots party through that. But eventually we were actually just told by the leader that we were no longer part of the team and that kind of thing. So I was really tempted to just throw in the towel. But things in Manitoba, were starting to get even worse. And our government was now saying that we couldn't have people in our own home. We couldn't visit our family for Christmas or even go to church whatsoever, among other things, So this is when I came together with some of the people who are also like really passionate about creating a true grassroots party and protecting freedom in Manitoba. So we started the Keystone Party in 2021. And soon after, the vaccine was kind of getting rolled out. The Manitoba PC government became the first in Canada to announce a vaccine passport, which I was very troubled by. I was concerned that this would be used to infringe on people's privacy, which is protected by provincial legislation, as well as lead to discrimination potentially. So I emailed the government and with those concerns last June, and they assured me that employers and other organizations should not be requesting proof of immunization for any purpose. And they even cited that Provincial Health Information Act as the reason. So I was a little bit encouraged, but nervous as well at the same time. So I also talked to my local MLA, who is the leader of the NDP, Wab Canoe, and he said that he would fight against any attempt to use a vaccine passport to restrict people from access to facilities or services. And both those were untrue. Both what I heard from the NDP and the PCs quickly changed. I was honestly shocked at how much, both the PC government and the NDP went against the word. They began to demand proof of vaccination and force businesses to break the law by requesting this proof. And it's been incredibly encouraging for me to be part of the Keystone Party, part of a team that is building a grassroots party that will be transparent, that will listen to people, and that will actually fight for that freedom of the person and will fight for all Manitobans to have equality and have rights and have their freedom protected and respected, rather than being told what to do or being essentially treated like idiots or treated like people who who don't deserve to have a say in the government and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's been good, and it's encouraging, but it's also it's humbling, but it's also at sometimes daunting, because there's still a lot to be done. But I feel it is 100% necessary to continue building this party and giving hope to Manitobans, because currently we don't have a say in our voice in our government, and we should, and that should be part of a democracy, right? We should have that ability to influence and to be heard and that kind of thing. So that's pretty much my story. I think you're muted, Mike.
There we go. That better? Awesome. Right on. Well, thanks so much, Adam. We'll let's bring Kevin and Charlene into the conversation here tonight. So welcome, Kevin and Charlene. So yeah, topic of freedom. Like, wow, what a topic to really open up on, with everything that we've been seeing happening here in the last 24 months, with in our nation and in our province, and seeing so many of the violations of our freedoms and the restrictions on our freedoms. And it's just absolutely, if someone had told me 3 years ago or 4 years ago that Canada would be where we are right now, I would have told them there is no way that we would be here. Like, this will never happen in Canada. And I keep hearing this everywhere I go. People I'm talking to, people are just literally shocked at, and they, people are saying, I don't recognize the Canada that we're in anymore. And it's really disturbing. And so let me kind of open up our Q&A session here with, I want to bring up, since we're talking about the freedom of the person, last week we touched a little bit, or not last week, the week before, we touched a little bit on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and some of the acts that really underlie a whole lot of our freedoms, that kind of stuff. And so I just want to read the preamble actually to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms as just kind of a launch pad for this discussion that we're going to have here. And in the preamble, it says this. It says, everyone in Canada is free to practice any religion or no religion at all. We are also free to express religious beliefs through prayer or by wearing religious clothing, for example. However, the Charter also ensures that others also have the right to express their religious beliefs in public. We are free to think our own thoughts, speak our own minds, listen to views of others, and express our opinions in creative ways. We're also free to meet with anyone we wish and participate in peaceful demonstrations. This includes the right to protest against government action or institution. However, these freedoms are not unlimited. There may be limits on how you express your religious beliefs if your way of doing so would infringe on the rights of others or undermine complex public programs and policies. For example, you may have religious reasons to object to having your photo taken for your driver's license, but this requirement may be linked to the need to stop others from unlawfully using your identity. In addition, the Charter does not protect expression such as hate speech that involves threats of violence or that takes the form of violence. The media also have certain fundamental freedoms and are free to print and broadcast news and other information. The government can only limit what the media prints for justifiable reasons set out in law. For example, a magazine cannot print slander, which is an untrue statement about a person that may hurt his or her reputation. Every Canadian citizen has the right to vote in elections and to run for public office themselves. There are certain exceptions. For example, people must be 18 years of age or older in order to vote. Our elected governments cannot hold power for an unlimited amount of time. The Charter requires governments to call an election at least once every 5 years. An election could be delayed, however, during a national emergency like in war. In this case, 2/3 of the members of the House of Commons, or in the case of provinces or territories, the Legislative Assembly must agree and delay the election. The Charter makes it clear that elected representatives of legislative assemblies must sit at least once a year. This holds Parliament and all other legislatures responsible for their actions. It goes on to talk about mobility rights, legal rights, and our interactions with the justice system and protection against unreasonable laws. and protections against arrest without good reason. And as I read this preamble, it really begins to, all of the images that we have seen going on in the media over the last 24 months have just, they just kind of file through the memories here, and you start remembering. It's like there's a freedom of the person, there's a freedom of assembly, there's a freedom to protest. It's like, do we really have that? Has that really taken place? And here we are in a province where we have a provincial government who's supposed to be representing us, and we have a degree of sovereignty as a province as well, according to the Constitution Act of 1867. And in the midst of all of that, we have a provincial government that is not speaking up on the violations that are taking place against Manitoba citizens. And so when we come to that, that kind of leads us into our first question. And I'll just throw this out there for whoever wants to kind of jump on this. But the first question we have is, how can a provincial party fight the war on the federal government dictating what we do in our province? And what is the Keystone Party's plan to combat this? So let me just throw that out there, and let's, Kevin or Adam, Charlene, whichever one of you guys want to kind of tackle that. And then anybody else has any, you just feel free to jump in there, guys. So.
Yeah, so my initial thoughts on that question. Thanks for that question. It's interesting that what has happened in the last few years, and it's always 2020 when we look back. I don't want to throw everybody that's been involved in the government under the bus, but there's been some interesting things that have happened, and there's been some opportunities for our provincial government to stand up against some of the things that have happened. And I'll give you one example. When our Prime Minister unlawfully, I would say, used the Emergencies Act, there was a couple of provinces, being Alberta and Saskatchewan specifically, I can remember, that they spoke out against what was happening, and the fact that our Prime Minister had first of all used the Emergency Act unlawfully and then revoked it. And so I believe that our provinces need to work together in fighting against those kind of unlawful acts. And I think we as one province maybe can't fight very strongly, but I think if we group together, and if we look back to 1982 and when they made the original document that I'm trying to think of, help me out here, guys. The
Constitution.
The Constitution. Yes, sorry, the word escaped me for some reason. And so when the Constitution was made, that was a group of provinces that got together and got that done, and that's what we need to do. Unfortunately, I feel that Saskatchewan and Alberta were hung out to dry when they were trying to speak out against our Prime Minister. So I think there's lots of other ways where we can really get the sovereignty of the provinces back into the dialogue, I guess it is, and that's what I believe the Keystone Party will do. Just to remind people that the Keystone Party will do what the grassroots want, and I think that's what the grassroots will want. They will want us to give the power back to the provinces and not just let this all go and give all the power to our Prime Minister or to the party in power or to whoever is leading us federally. And I think we need. I mean, I personally believe that the family is where the governing starts, and then it goes to municipalities, and then it goes to provinces, and then it goes to a federal overlooking us. And so, yeah, I hope that answers the question. I think that's our plan to combat it, and that is to join other provinces in getting it done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Adam.
Well, I was going to say, like, on top of the Emergencies Act, there's also those federal travel mandates, which are pretty challenging, because right now Canada is, the only country that is not allowing someone to get on a plane in their own country to go somewhere else in their country or to leave the country. And that's something that I think only really Alberta is spoken against. And also Manitoba should really be talking about that, because it affects plenty of Manitobans. Actually affects all of Manitobans, because even those who are vaccinated shouldn't be forced to reveal that information to go on a flight, right? Because it's private information. And I could even see it, a lawsuit against the federal government from a provincial government being a potential action that you could take that could be quite effective.
Yeah. Yeah, and that leads us into the next question that we have is given the fact that that public health actually falls under the purview of the provincial government, what steps would a Keystone Party government take to ensure that those medical protections would be in place and would be protected by the province when we see the overstepping that you've just mentioned and talked about taking place by the federal government? What are some of the things the Keystone government would do to actually begin to put stuff in place to stop some of the government overreach that has taken place? For example, even interprovincial travel being restricted, and it seems like the provincial governments have almost become an extension or an arm of the federal government. So.
Yeah, again, like I don't think, we have this Provincial Health Information Act, which is a piece of legislation that's been written for years, and we shouldn't just sit idly by while the federal government creates regulation that's not even legislation to infringe on that. So we have to make sure that our laws are being enforced and protected and respected by other levels of government, such as the federal government.
Yeah. And
I think it's probably hard to do that because the provincial government was breaking that law themselves for so many months. It's hard for them to now and go and actually try to fight for their own legislation. But as a government, we would want to definitely make sure we're not breaking our own laws, and then also not allowing the federal government to go and break those laws without trying to hold them accountable. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just from my purview, I really look at it from a perspective of, I think that they're almost, and I mean, as a legislature, I think that we could put parameters in place and even laws in place that could bring stiff penalties against any organization that would band together with the federal government to overstep. So if we had corporations or businesses or other entities within the province that decided that they were going to sidestep these acts within the province, like FIA, and side with the federal government, I think that it would do well for us to actually be able to put very stiff penalties in place. And I think that's one remedy that government could put in place provincially, where if a organization or a business or corporation or something like that were to participate in violation of provincial acts, which we have sovereignty over, according to the Constitution Act of 1867, Manitoba has sovereignty over quite a few things, and public health is one of those things. But I think that's an area where we could make some advancements in putting some very stiff penalties and really put some teeth into legislation that would make it very cost prohibitive and very detrimental for corporations to bypass the province and side with the federal government next time something like this were to happen. So I think that's something else that could be a remedy to that. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Mike. And I think the Keystone Party definitely realizes, and this is maybe a good segue into talking about unity. And I think that this province is about as disunified as we've ever been, for sure. I hope it doesn't get worse. And we realize as the Keystone Party that we need to bring this party, not just this party, but this province back to a state of unity, not of, I mean, we can hardly say the word community right now because there is no, the communities are so divided. And so that's a huge thing. And I think this principle that we're talking about, I mean, has a lot to do with that. And I think one of the ways we do that is we engage thousands and thousands of Manitobans and start getting them the feeling that we are working together. The way you do that is you engage a grassroots movement. And so when the grassroots start moving towards one goal and start seeing that as we work together, we have more power, I think that changes the whole attitude. I think it starts to bring us together. I think all the distractions that have gotten in the way, whether it was from government or not from government, all the distractions have totally ripped us apart, ripped families apart, I mean, we all have friends that we didn't have or that weren't our friends before, and we've lost friends that were very good friends before. And so that's perhaps a good chance to say that that we're going to work as hard as we can to bring us back to a place where we can be communities again.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Excellent. Okay, I'm just going to scroll through some more of the questions here. So this question is for Adam. It says, Adam, do you see this party being under the umbrella of the PPC party?
I would say no. Like obviously we want to work alongside all levels of government and all levels, and including federal government and the parties there. But I don't think we're under the umbrella, because that implies that they would be directing us or calling the shots or something like that. But really, we're really just like a bottom-up party for Manitobans, so that really we're trying to be a true grassroots party. So Manitobans would be the ones deciding what our policy is, who are in positions of influence, and who's on the constituency association. So everything is kind of grassroots driven. But at the same time, like we would have some similarities in terms of principles with some of the other parties out there, like perhaps the PPC or the Conservative Party. But
yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah,
I would say that well, first of all, this party has no affiliation with any other party. We get this question asked to us lots, and just because we're purple doesn't mean that we're PPC, and just because we are fiscally responsible doesn't mean that we're affiliating ourselves with the Conservatives. And just because we think that we have social responsibility, and that's what we're going to talk about next week, we're not a socialist party or an NDP or a liberal party as well. We are the first and only, as far as we know, bottom-up party. Some people have said that the Green Party is somewhat of a bottom-up party, but we're yet to see them show that. As a provincial party, though, we think that that the fact that we're not affiliated with anybody, that has a lot of advantages. First of all, it's a lot easier for us to join with other provinces and fight against what's happening at the federal level and to create the sovereignty that I was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. But as well as that, we aren't tied to doing something that a crazy top-down party is doing at the federal level, and that's the hugest hurdle that our Conservative government has to overcome. And I don't care who the leader is, whether you're a Pierre Poilievre fan or what you are. Really, that party is as good as the leader, and we never want this party to ever be that. And we've created a constitution that will never put the weight on the shoulders of the leader. Mm-hmm. And that's the only reason why I'm willing to lead that thing, because I really have no power. That's the whole plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the really interesting thing to highlight in this, on what you brought up now, Kevin, too, and in talking about the freedom of the person, is when we talk about, and I don't know how many people know, I've only started to learn about our present system of government here in Manitoba, but there's the Westminster system of government is something that Manitoba and most other provinces run on. And what I've started to discover about this is it's not really about being a democratic system, and it's not really about giving people a voice. It's about appointing and electing a representative to be your representative to the Queen, in essence, which was originally what we were founded as, a constitutional monarchy in the nation of Canada. And so the system of government was not really created from the very beginning to champion the freedom of the person and have that as a foundational principle to the way our system of government actually operates. And so when we talk about grassroots, and when you're talking really about being a grassroots party, Kevin, I think that's one of the things that that we really need to help to get the message out and to educate the public in understanding this, is that when we talk federally, we talk about the fact that what we really need federally is we need a complete reformation of our system of government. Because right now we have a system of government that lends itself very easily to a totalitarian type of rulership, should the leadership be inclined in that way. And our provincial system does the same thing currently with the Westminster system of government. And what Keystone's actually proposing, and what you were just talking about, I think, and this is really an interesting topic when we're starting to talk about the freedom of the person in understanding, that the way the government system is structured right now and the way our legislature is structured is it is not structured to watch out for the person and the individual. It is largely focused on having a governing class of people that literally represent the queen or represent government to the people, as opposed to representing the people and what the people want and then going and doing that. And it's really important, I think, that we understand that foundationally, that this is what we're dealing with. And so when we talk about the question of the freedom of person, and how would the Keystone Party tackle that question, I think it comes right back to what you're talking about, is becoming a grassroots party and bringing that accountability. And this is where our Constitution becomes so key in this, the Constitution of the Keystone Party, because it's literally putting the power into the hands of the electorate and making those governing officials now accountable to the electorate on a real-time basis every day, as opposed to what our current system has is, if we don't like something you've done as government, we can protest and we can make a squawk, but really we only have power every 4 or 5 years to vote to get rid of you, right? So I think that's one of the things I think that we really need to begin to highlight and talk about in this is what really is the key differences that really champion the freedom of the person with the Keystone Party. Sorry, that was kind of a question. I think it just in understanding, just in the topic of understanding how our constituency associations are structured and how those presidents of the constituency association form into the provincial council, and how the provincial council then works together with MLAs and with caucus and with the premier. Because right now, like you've said, we've had a top-down system, but that's not actually what the Keystone Constitution is proposing, is it?
No, I'll maybe give a bit of a history. So when I heard that we were going to build a true grassroots party, I didn't fully believe that we were building a true grassroots party. And so I encourage all of our listeners to take a look at the Constitution, because it's been written in a way that anybody can understand it. It's not in lawyer terms. It's in plain English that anybody can understand it. And so my challenge was that I didn't think that you could build a true grassroots party that was functional. Because I mean, when you have, let's say we're to sell 10,000 memberships, I've been in a room of 1,000 farmers before, and you can't get 10 farmers of like mind in the same room. And so I realized that it was going to be super hard for us to get our membership to all agree on something. But what we have created here, through constituency associations, through bigger groups that actually finally create the policy that get the job done in the legislature, it's something that I can't take credit for. It was a group of people that worked really hard on kind of adjusting an existing constitution that we had. But I'm not sure if that answers your question, Mike, but it's really a true grassroots party that is going to be able to get the functioning. It's going to be basically a functioning arm from the grassroots level, getting the other arm, which is in the legislature, to do what that grassroots is saying. And I'm super impressed that we were able to do it. And I didn't think it was possible, but I really truly believe it's going to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that I think is really fundamental in that is when you talk about the formation of the grassroots part of the party and the constituency associations and them coming together. When I started reading through it, and I started actually discovering, like, when the caucus, the MLAs and the premier, actually 2 times a year, they are required to meet with all of the heads of the constituency associations who form the provincial council. And they're actually accountable to meet with the provincial council and to run legislation and to go over party policy and go over government policies twice a year, stuff is being reviewed. And I think that that's absolutely instrumental in understanding when we start talking about the freedom of the person and some of the abuses that have taken place over the last, 24, 36 months. As those kind of things start to happen, if the Keystone Party had actually been a party that was in power at the time, you as an individual citizen who was having your rights violated would have had the opportunity to go to your constituency association and speak at a meeting and say, hey, here's my problem. I have an issue with this. And I think our government should be doing something about this. And there should be some remedies taking place. And that constituency association president then takes that concern to provincial council. Provincial council then has an opportunity every 6 months to hold government accountable. And so you as an individual citizen, where all you used to be able to do before was talk to your MLA. And if your MLA was a backbench MLA and they weren't part of cabinet, and I don't know if anybody else has had this experience in the last 2 years, but I've talked to my MLA, and I know other people here have talked to their MLA. And if your MLA is not part of the cabinet, they basically will tell you that they really don't have a voice in government, really don't have the power to affect change. And that's incredibly disturbing when you start to think about that as an individual, and when your rights and your freedoms are being violated and you have literally no recourse other than to turn around and get a lawyer and try to sue big government. And now little you by yourself is now standing up against government. Whereas now, as I read through the Constitution with the Keystone Party, I become aware that actually I have power now. I have the ability to affect my constituency association. My constituency association president has the power to affect provincial council. Provincial council has the ability to call government into question every 6 months and bring stuff before them and say, hey, there's a serious issue that's going on. So what's taken place in the last 24 months would have had some checks and balances in place through the system of government that's being proposed by the Keystone Party, which is very different.
I think it even goes further than that, Mike, and that is in the last 2 years, we've seen that even a minister that is in the cabinet, even they didn't have the power as well. Like, I mean, not even, so the backbenchers definitely didn't have any power, but we definitely see how the political system and the legacy political parties basically gave all the power to the leader when that was needed, or when they said that was needed. And so even the cabinet leaders were not given any power.
Yeah. Well, and I think that hits on a very important topic of freedom of person as well. When you begin to think about that, like how do you reckon that when you talk about the freedom of person and the protections of the freedom of the individual enshrined in our Constitution and in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and you have an elected MLA that the people have elected, put into power, and that MLA is now representing to government, and you have a premier who removes them from cabinet or removes them from government, which we've seen take place in provincial settings. And so I would even point out there that what the Keystone Party is proposing to do, it would literally would remove the power of the premier to be able to carte blanche, just turn around and turf an MLA from cabinet, or from caucus, I should say. Yeah. Well, let's move on down here. A couple more questions that we have in here. One question here is asking for an update on the Thompson meeting. Why don't we hit that at the end, and we'll do that because we have a few more things to talk about on the upcoming meetings. Well, here, why don't we go into this one here? How's the party doing on getting party status? Is there, do we have enough signatures, and do we have enough money yet?
Hi. Okay, we are very close to getting registered. I'm just in the process of filling out the paperwork and consulting with an auditor. We have everything together. We would like to still get more signatures. In the event that any of our signatures are rejected due to the fact we were getting signatures in the middle of winter time and pens were freezing up. So we are going to continue to get signatures, but those signatures are going to be going in very shortly.
Excellent. Right on.
Was the question that we didn't have, or did we have enough money yet? Was that?
Yeah, do we have enough money yet? Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have enough money yet. No, just maybe so it's clear for people listening. You don't actually need any money to register your party.
Mhm.
What you need is 2,500 signatures of people that think that that Manitoba needs a party. So you need to sign the petition that says that. And so if any of the listeners haven't done that, I think those signatures could perhaps be needed because of what Charlene said. Interesting enough, this is a story I like to tell, and that is to get a federal party going, you need 250 signatures to get your provincial or to get your national party going. In Manitoba, we need 2,500 signatures, and one of the smallest provinces as far as the amount of people in Manitoba. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, if we can't convince 2,500 people that that we need the party, I don't think we deserve to be a party. So I want to thank the 2,500 or 2,700, whatever, of people out there already that have signed the petition. Thank you for doing that. I know some people were leery on doing that because of some of the repercussions that were happening, even from the trucker convoy and those kind of things. So thanks to those who signed. But I guess the way we will raise money going forward will be with memberships, and we look forward to getting money and being able to run some campaigns. But so thank you.
Yeah, I just would mention as well, right now, without having official party status, we don't have the ability to receive donations and provide charitable donation receipts. That comes with formal registration. But if someone was wanting to help out, anybody at this point in time, anybody that wanted to contribute financially and not receive a tax receipt, just wanted to give money to help, help the party along, stuff like that, they would have the ability to do that at this point, but it is not receivable again, and would not be considered a donation to an official provincial party or federal party. So I would just mention that, but yeah, there are some people who have said that they wanted to help out and have contributed finances to help out, with no strings attached, and that's just people who just want to be a patriotic Manitoban and are committed to change, and so we welcome that as well. So that's great as well. So with that, why don't we're about quarter to the hour here. Let's just transition a little bit. Kevin, why don't you give us an update on, we had our first physical town hall took place in Thompson just over, I guess, 3 weeks ago or so. And we had also a physical home, oh my goodness, town hall here in Brandon, actually, this past weekend. Why don't you give us an update on those two events? And then we'll turn it over to Charlene to give us a little plug here on what's to come here next. So.
Yeah, so we've been running a few live town halls, and the purpose of running these town halls is to see if we can find people, because to come to a first town hall, I'll be honest, it's hard to get people to come out. And so if you see one coming in your area and you're wondering whether you should go, just come and see what's happening. The people that are coming to both the one in Thompson and the one in Brandon specifically lately, the people that have come are getting very excited about it. And many, I would say a huge majority of the people that do come are willing to set up a constituency association. And so it's not required. Don't feel like you'll have to do that if you come to the meeting, but that's how I believe the message will get out. We won't be able to do a meeting in every town throughout Manitoba. Well, maybe we will be, but I think it's going to be the job of the grassroots to tell other grassroots what we're about. Right now, not many grassroots know what we're about because we've only put the Constitution together within the last 2 months. And so, we're not even registered yet. So once we get registered, the plan is to do more of these meetings. So come to a meeting if it's within half hour of your place. And yeah, I think actually at our meeting in Thompson, I think 100% of the people there were willing to set up a constituency association. So it was a small crowd that day, but really honorable that everybody was excited about starting one there. In Brandon, I'm not sure the exact number, but there was a good number there that were willing to set up constituency associations there too. So that's the purpose of these meetings, is kind of to, maybe the first meetings are only going to be 25, 50 people, and hopefully the next meeting is 100 or 500 people. And then maybe by next fall, we have hundreds of thousands of people that are joining us. That's the way we think it's going to get done. If you have better ideas than that, let us know, but that's how we think we have to get this marketing job done.
Awesome. Right on. Well, Charlene, why don't you give us an update on what is up and coming with our next events for the Keystone Party?
Oh, thank you, Mike. I just want to start with how great it is that we can come together for our town hall meetings. This gives the Keystone Party an opportunity to connect with people from the different regions of our province at the same time. We can provide updates on our progress, provide volunteer opportunities, and inform you of upcoming in-person meetings. While Zoom works for regular meetings, we can't deny that we appreciate that personal touch that comes with meeting in person. The Keystone Party would like your assistance in getting the word out about us. We would like to have in-person meet and greets throughout the communities of Manitoba. This will give everyone an opportunity to ask questions and have coffee together with no pressure of time. We can look into building our constituency associations throughout the province. We will be sending in our registration, and once registered, things are going to move quickly. We have just over a year to build our committees, constituency associations, and to establish our candidates. The next step in accomplishing this is to meet with the people in the communities of Manitoba and build those teams. We are available for public and private meetings in your area. This is where we can use your immediate assistance. We would like to have a list of reasonably priced venues and volunteers that would be available to help us set up and tear down after. It takes a village, and in this case, it'll take the communities of our province to come together to make change. We are a grassroots party that will be as strong as the people who will support and work with us. We appreciate your participation with our town hall meetings, and we look forward to meeting with you in your community. Please email us at info@keystonepartymb.ca with any information that can assist us. I will answer every email and record the information in a database that we will refer to when we're booking our meet and greets. All suggestions are welcome. The next meet and greet will be this coming Friday evening in Austin, Manitoba. It will be held at the Austin Community Hall at 7:30 p.m. All are welcome. Please feel free to share this information with your friends and your family, and the dates and information are also posted on our social media. Thanks.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, with that, I think we're almost at our time here. I don't know, do you have any closing thoughts, Adam, that you'd like to share, or Kevin or Charlene or anybody?
Just thanks for being here.
Mm-hmm.
And in closing, I just kind of like to share what happens at our town hall meetings. Every single one is the same that we've done, and there's a bit of a formal presentation, and it's tough to get that first question out of them after. But there's been a lot of good questions asked at our town halls, and every time we actually have to kind of push people out the door just because everybody wants to visit after. There's so many people that are excited at what they're hearing about, and it's always a real encouragement after the meeting is over just to see how many people are excited about what's happening, how many people have plans on how they can get their constituency association going, and those kind of things. Those are really encouraging, because what I'll tell you is that I'm a farmer by trade, and so I've been since I was a kid, I've been doing it, but officially since 1995, I've been putting seeds in the ground and watching them grow, and I really don't see this any different, except for that these seeds seem to take forever to grow. But it is exciting to see a movement starting to move across Manitoba, that seeds are being planted, and I can hardly wait to see what's going to happen when they grow. And we can totally do this, Manitoba. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Well, we will be back on in 2 weeks' time to deal with principle number 3. And so thank you all for taking the time to be with us tonight, and encourage you guys, if you're in or close to the Austin area this Friday night, come on out and give us your support, and bring a friend. So have a great night, everyone. Thanks so much, and we will see you later.